On today's menu, a clarifying appetizer, a personal story salad, and finally, a savory how you can use the idea yourself entree. The Mindscape is one of my favorite mental tools that I've been using for years now. I'd like to clarify what it isn't, in case you are mistaking it for something you've heard of prior. The Mindscape is not a mind palace, which is a useful way to memorize things by placing them in a mental building in a certain order. Nor is it a happy place where you can put your mind to relax when you are stressed or anxious. When I say Mindscape, I am describing a sort of toolbox for telling your own story and recalling how you have changed as an individual over time. I think my personal example will help show what a Mindscape can be, and then you can get started on crafting your own. A Mindscape is a realm that grows and changes over time. What changes and for what reasons is up to the host of the Mindscape, and you should pick things that feel natural to you. No one can judge what is in your own head, unless you share it, like I'm about to. From 2014 to 2020, the events that marked meaningful changes in how I think were the beginnings and ends of relationships. In my Mindscape, these time periods were bounded by new technologies, specifically power generation. To make a long story short, my first girlfriend paired with fire and society was tribal. The next relationship was paired with steam power and the citizens of the Mindscape enjoyed an industrial revolution. My third girlfriend was a romance that marked electricity and an early internet. The fourth and final young woman was nuclear power, and that era ended with a nuclear disaster that simplified the society I had developed into a group of survivors living off the land. That last bit is where I am now, single. In a way, this is sort of like the Mind Palace I mentioned, only instead of series of objects for a memory game, the things I can recall in chronological order are meaningful events that shaped who I am. I'd also like to make clear that focusing on relationships and technology are far from what you have to pick. They suit me because I'm a software developer and a romantic. Another example can be found in the Mindscape made by one of those girlfriends. Her world was a planet, and the people there had different divisions of science related to her life. Geologists would study fossils that represented her past. Astrologists would study the stars that would be her future. There was even a military division that protected a secure location that held her secrets and vulnerabilities. Why should everyone create at least a basic Mindscape? Despite the fact that we are all very unique individuals, no one can deny that we all value stories. History and fiction are littered with ways to try and find yourself through narratives. I instead like to challenge people to produce their own stories instead of just consuming. Sure, heroes like Hercules to Harry Potter help us realize ourselves, but imagine a story that is exclusively your own. Start small. For me, dating someone was like playing with fire. Boom, a tribe that just discovered fire. Pick anything. Don't worry about being realistic. Maybe you just took up knitting as a hobby and you are loving it. Your Mindscape could be a world knit by demigods as time goes on. In a year, you can look back on the happy days and their bright patterns, or the darker times where the yarn is thinner, but you made it. Don't worry about the narrative at the start. I filled in a lot of my blanks from the Age of Fire when I was already in the Age of Electricity. You can write lore for the past as you see fit. Locations and event can spring up out of nowhere for storytelling. Part of the Industrial Revolution for me was a building called the Ministry of Thought, where little guys that represented my priorities and desires would vote on what I should do in life. Bad habits would be like corrupt political parties, and so on. This building also could have new departments as needed. The internet was preceded by telephones, which happened to arrive when I went to college, and that relationship became long distance. Calls were frequent, and so my little society put up phone lines. All things considered, I think storytelling is usually framed as an act of entertaining others. I'd argue that you can also put considerable time into telling yourself your own story. You don't even need a pen. The Mindscape can create itself in a way. Speaking of storytelling, this video is an adaptation from a chapter of a book I'm writing called Taking Turns, Meandering Life's Challenges One Dice Roll at a Time. I'll make more videos like this teasing the ideas that I share in that, and I'll also announce the completion of the book here when that time comes. Thanks for watching.